Welcome to the KPC Smart Money Podcast with Karen and Kevin Christ. Well, today, it just seems like we've been doing a lot of two-parter, Kevins, but that's because we've got a lot of information to cover.
Yep.
All right. So this one's kind of a fun topic, a hot topic, and that is, what do you do with your finances when you get married? Boy, opinions on this are all over the board. But when you get married, finances is one of those topics, maybe even more so than children, that you have got to talk about.
Yeah.
And you got to plan for it because your financial life is going to change in profound ways. You know, it's not just that you're going to be living together or sharing expenses with your new spouse. You know, you don't need to get married to do that, but there are legal and there are tax statuses changed. There are things to consider about credit scores, even though they might remain individual. What kind of credit score is your spouse bringing into the marriage?
Yeah. I wonder how many people actually think about that.
Probably not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I was actually talking to a client this morning, and his daughter was about to get married, and they kind of called it off. They were 26 years old, both of them. The 26-year-old had never had a job, the male. Had never had a job and was living off of a credit card that his parents gave him. So that, I mean, when you think about you're getting ready to spend the rest of your life with somebody,
yeah,
you know, when it comes to
there's a few milestones by 26 that you should hit. Job would be one of them.
What?
You know,
well,
not having.
So what kind of credit history? I mean, he's got a credit card.
None.
From his.
He'd have zero. He'd have zero credit history and no job history. Yeah, that would be rough. Hats off to the father, girl's
I can tell you
parents.
The client, the father, was pretty happy that
I'm sure
that
he was.
didn't go through.
But again, you want to make sure that when your kids are getting married, that that they're going to work together as a team, especially when it comes to the financial stuff, because finances is day in and day out. It's smart to sit down with your partner well before the wedding and talk about these issues. And hey, do some financial planning. You know, yeah, we get it. It's not thrilling. You know, it's not like planning the wedding, but the decisions that you and your future spouse make about how to handle money, they will have long-term repercussions on you, period. Not just as individuals, but as a couple. You know, and, if you decide to have kids, this will impact your kids. So your choices will have not only financial implications, but they're going to have emotional and legal ones too. So don't you think a little preparation now would really pay off handsomely later?
Yeah, so here's some key takeaways. Partners should fully disclose their assets, liabilities, and credit reports to each other before marriage. I wonder how many people actually do that, Karen.
I don't know.
Did you know what my credit report was?
I didn't know exactly what your credit report was, but I had a pretty good idea what the finances look like.
Okay. Financial decisions around wedding budgets will affect couples for years, for better or for worse. Marriage can have major financial benefits, especially if you understand the best way to file your taxes as a couple. That's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
So, just as an aside, they say that the two biggest reasons why couples fight, money and intimacy. And money is number one.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So this is very important that you talk these things out.
It is.
Beforehand, right? So learn your state's laws regarding marital property.
Yep.
Right.
Are you in a community property?
And understand, and understand how assets and liabilities acquired before and after marriage will be shared. You think about, people that come in with bad credit rating, or the credit gets bad and then they leave.
Yeah.
Right.
You got married. You're stuck with a part of that, or a spouse that decides to just, use a lot of credit cards. Well, if you're married, you're pretty much on the line for that debt also. So here are a few things that you might want to think about before you say I do. It's important that you and your partner disclose your full financial circumstances. Again, because marriage is a legal and a financial decision. The government could care less how much you are in love with each other. That's not on your tax return. Nobody's going to ask you. It's all about legalities and finances. So you need to know what risks you are taking because you will be binding yourself to this other person. Now, you want to disclose all assets, all liabilities. If this is a second marriage, you definitely want to talk about whatever's coming over from that. You can obtain each other's credit reports, credit scores. It's simple, it's free. And then sit down and look at it. Now you know what you're dealing with, so then you can decide how to handle your finances in marriage. You know, you cannot begin to fix a problem if there is one until you identify it. If one partner has considerably more assets or more earning power than the other, you know, there are some marriages where they'll want a prenuptial agreement. Now, I'm not going to go down whether you should have a prenup or not a prenup. That is a personal, very personal decision. But if there is a significant imbalance, inherited money, or things like that, then a prenup might be a great idea.
Well, if either or both of you carry considerable debt, it's time to make a plan for paying it off. One spouse's premarital debt does not automatically become the other's upon signing a marriage license, but that debt can still affect you after marriage as it affects your joint finances.
Mm-hmm.
So while marriage in and out of itself has no impact on credit scores, common practices of married couples seeking joint car loans or mortgages, opening joint credit card accounts, or adding a spouse as a cardholder on individual accounts can affect both spouses' future credit. So, if either of you has poor credit, come up with a plan for improving it. You can be co-borrowers and use both of your assets to qualify if you ever apply for an automobile loan or a mortgage together. So when spouses borrow jointly, but one has poor credit, a lender may charge higher interest and fees than the spouse with good credit could have been eligible for on their own.
Yeah, now that's really critical because a lot of newly married people, they're going to want to go get a house. Well, how do you get a house when someone's got a great credit rating and somebody has a really bad one?
Yeah, so sometimes I have to get the mortgage and the one that has the good credit, right?
Right. And yeah, then that person's holding the entire debt on that mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you want to set up joint financial goals. You really want to create a household budget that will help you achieve your financial goals. Now's the time to think about your answer, and I'm going to throw out a couple questions here to think about. What are your top priorities in life, and how do finances factor into those priorities? You know, do you both want to own a house? Do you both want to start kids? Or do you have one person who just cannot resist buying stuff from Amazon every day? Or you got another person that just has to own lots of toys and toys and toys? Those are things you need to talk about. What are your long-term career prospects and goals? You know, what type of upward mobility do you have in your current job? How about, will either of you need financial support for additional education or time out of the workplace in order to get to those goals, particularly if someone is still in school? Will one spouse stay home full-time or part-time to care for kids? That is a biggie. Childcare is very expensive, but so is one spouse having to give up their job. Now's the time to talk about how many kids and how you might go about affording them. Do either of you have children from a previous relationship, and what kind of responsibilities will you have for them? Now, do either of you expect to be called on to support other relatives? And I'm really talking about here is parents who are getting older. if you're marrying somebody and they think they've got to support other relatives that's not aging parents or dependent kids, that is a conversation you're going to want to have. Okay? You do not want to have one person that's just willing to take on any distant relative to bail them out. You know, you're not a welfare system. You're a marriage, right? We've seen it, and the only reason I say this like this is because we've seen it.
Yes, we have.
You know, and we're like, okay,
it's tough because you want to help your family members,
right?
Right, and some of them haven't planned like they should have planned, and you know, and you want to just say, hey, look, tough.
How did that become your problem?
Yeah. But you know, and then they call and they cry and help me, right? And what do you so what are you gonna do? So it's a
They're
tough.
Just lucky
it's a tough.
It's not me.
It's a yeah.
No, right?
You're good at saying no.
Well, when you have to, you have to. It's not fun, but
what if it's your parents?
See, that's a different situation. So here's how I gauge it. I really look at if somebody is in need of help, have they shown that they are responsible in the past, or have they not?
So if it's not their fault, you would be more likely to help them than if they were just
correct
drug addicts, or you know, they drank their money away, or
correct
they just, you know, they gambled their money away.
Yeah, and will this help them get on their own feet? Or is this someone who's just going to be sucking the life out of you,
coming
back to the well?
Right.
Exactly. So to me, you got to look at that type of a person. And just before we end it, this is huge. You guys, married couples, talk about your attitudes towards saving and spending, because everyone is very, very different. And this is where most of the problems happen. There are those differences between how do you want to save and how do you want to spend? So as I said, Kevin, this is going to be a multi-parter, and we're out of time, but thanks for listening. This is Kevin and Karen Christ with the KPC Smart Money Podcast, and we'll be back next week to talk more about finances for people getting married.
You've been listening to the KPC Smart Money Podcast with Kevin and Karen Christ. To listen to more episodes, visit kpcsmartmoney.com. You can also find the KPC Smart Money Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher.
KPC Financial Solutions is an independent financial services firm that utilizes a variety of investment and insurance products. Investment advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through KPC Financial Solutions, LLC, a registered investment company. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any reference to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. KPC Financial Solutions is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by KPC Financial Solutions. Hypothetical examples have been provided for illustrative purposes only. It does not represent a real-life scenario and should not be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation.